What's up, everybody? Welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. My name is Andy Herman. I just finished up my grades for the offense for week 4 against Atlanta, so I'm going to be going over my best and worst rated players in just a moment. But before I get to any of that, I have to give a huge shout out. If you noticed the new introduction over the course of the last couple days here on YouTube, I have to give a huge shout out to Matub. He did a tremendous job with that. He did it out of the goodness of his own heart. He is a immensely talented person. I absolutely love following him on Twitter. If you are not following him, you are missing out, so please make sure to do so. Matub, thank you so incredibly much for putting that together. He has been a huge part of our original Pack-A-Day podcast team. His work is fantastic, so make sure you are following him. And again, Matub, thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't noticed, I don't know what I'm doing with any of this. I don't know really what I'm doing with anything, period. But I try to surround myself with really smart, knowledgeable, and talented people, which is how I've put the podcast together. I let them do the heavy lifting. Matub did the heavy lifting here. So again, thanks so much again. And again, make sure to follow him on Twitter. All right, so I have a couple things I want to discuss before I get into my grades. There was some injury news and some, transactions that took place. Josiah Deguara lost for the season with a torn ACL. Devastating news. This is definitely somebody that really fit well within Matt LaFleur's offense, could do a variety of different things. Looked good in week 1, didn't look quite as good in week 4. You could tell, 1, he's still a rookie. 2, just got back from injury, still trying to kind of figure things out. But still, this is somebody that they definitely had plans for in this offense, was a key part of the special teams. So you don't want to see him go down. You never want to see a top 100 pick really go down in their first season. It just hurts their progression. It hurts their overall development. So really tough break for the Packers. I will say this, though, what I'm always looking at when it comes to injuries, every team is going to have some major injuries from week to week, and players are going to be out. When you have a team like the Packers, what you want to do is not necessarily look who's out right now, not necessarily look who's out against Tampa Bay. I think you really want to look at who's potentially out for a playoff run, because this is a team that's going to make the playoffs. There's 7 teams that are going to make the playoffs this year. The Green Bay Packers are going to be one of those 7 teams after they've started 4-0 in the season. And, I just think you have to start looking ahead to say, all right, who's not going to be available for that playoff run? And when you've had really a full off season, even though it was limited this year, plus your first quarter of the game done, or quarter of the season done, and you've only lost 2 players for the year so far, in Lane Taylor and in Josiah Deguara. This is no knock on Lane Taylor or Josiah Deguara. They're both really good players, but if those are the only 2 players that you've lost for that playoff run through the first quarter of the season plus, you kind of take that. And again, that's no knock on Lane Taylor or Josiah Deguara, both really nice players. But I think when you start looking at it in some of the major players that have been lost already this season for contending teams, for maybe not so contending teams, there have been some major injury losses. Look at Nick Bosa for the San Francisco 49ers. There are teams that are just decimated right now. So the Green Bay Packers overall, from an injury standpoint, are banged up. But when you look long-term down the road, when the Packers are really competing and needing wins come the end of the season and playoff time, they haven't lost too many players, knock on wood, knock on everything, but so I think that overall is good news so far, and hopefully that continues to remain the case, and really hopefully they get, healthier in general, and that the bye week will help with that. But I think it's a overall positive sign that they've only lost Lane Taylor and Josiah Deguara to long-term injuries at this point. I know some people were asking about Allen Lazard, and yes, Allen Lazard is supposed to be back at some point this season. It's not supposed to be season-ending. So again, at this point, just Deguara and Lane Taylor. A couple other news and notes. Reggie Begelton was released off the 53-man roster. Not unexpected. They wanted to call up 3 people, you could tell. And basically they called up 2 from the practice squad, and then they signed Reggie Begelton to the 53 because they had the spot available. They actually had 2 spots available. They released Begelton. You got to think that he will be back on the practice squad as soon as he clears waivers, which he will. So expect that just to basically be a demotion this week from the regular 53 back to the practice squad for Reggie. And then Curtis Bolton was also released. So that was an interesting one. There's a chance that he still could be brought back on the practice squad. Technically, he was on the PUP list. When you get removed from the PUP, you're basically on the active roster, at which point then you have to release them off of the active roster if you want to put them on the practice squad. So there is still that potential that he could end up on the practice squad, although he did tweet out today about being released. It doesn't seem as promising. We'll see. He's been a friend of the podcast. He's come on. Really thought that he had a promising 2019 preseason, then had the injury and just hasn't been back since. So we'll see what happens with Curtis Bolton, but he was let go, and we'll kind of keep an eye on it over the course of the next couple of days to see what happens. But he would still be eligible to be added to the practice squad if Green Bay wanted to do that and go that route. All right, let's go into my grades. Just finished those up. You are the very first people that will be hearing about my top 3 and bottom 3 graded players from the offense this week. I'll be doing the defense tomorrow. I probably won't finish tomorrow. I'll probably finish up the defense on Thursday night. So I guess as I'm recording this, I won't finish them on Wednesday. So I'll finish them up on Thursday night. So I'll try to get to those when we do that episode of the podcast. But top 3 graded players this week: Aaron Rodgers, Corey Linsley, and David Bakhtiari. And I know your immediate thought and my immediate thought, what about Bobby Tonyan? He just finished just a tick below David Bakhtiari for that 3rd spot. Rodgers, another really good week, and as I've told you guys in the past, just the way that quarterbacks are graded, he's always going to grade just a little bit higher, and it's probably going to be either a high grade or a low grade. There's usually not too much in the middle for a quarterback. So he had another really nice week, though, and again, when you're cooking the way that Aaron Rodgers is right now, there's going to be some really strong grades in there. That was another instance this week. He was my top-rated offensive player. Number 2, Corey Linsley just had a hell of a week. He had a plus 2.15 grade, which for an offensive lineman is insane. The big matchup everyone was, really talking about was Grady Jarrett versus Elton Jenkins and Corey Linsley. And Lucas Patrick struggled this week, which I'll get to in a moment. Part of that was against Grady Jarrett, but Elton Jenkins held up well overall, and Corey Linsley is just an absolute stud. Another phenomenal game for him. I don't envy Brian Gutekunst right now with how well all of these free agents to be going into next season are playing. And right now, Corey Linsley, David Bakhtiari, 2 top of the list with the way that they've put together their season so far. That leads me into number 3, David Bakhtiari. The Falcons didn't really have anything cooking off the edge. Dante Fowler was able to kind of knife his way into the backfield on a couple of running plays. He more was gap shooting than actually beating any offensive tackles one-on-one. Both Bakhtiari and Billy Turner handled their assignments on the outside with really not much issue. And then Robert Tonyan, I'll give you my 4th. He was my 4th highest rated player. Just a really nice grade. And this wasn't just pass receiving. He put another nice blocking effort out there. A couple missed blocks. Had he not missed those couple blocks, he would have been in the top 3. But overall, you love to see the progress from Robert Tonyan really becoming a core member of this offense with what he's able to do in every down tight end, the starter at that position, and he's really grown into that role. Hopefully he can continue that momentum once the bye is done. My bottom 3 rated players, nothing too egregious. Lucas Patrick had a really difficult start to the game, and credit to him for bouncing back. He was negative, I want to say 1 point something through about the first quarter and a half, and then he ended with about a negative 0.45 grade, somewhere right around there. But he really bounced back as the game went on and ended up with at least a respectable score, and it wasn't anything too egregious. But he was my lowest graded player. Again, struggled with Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett's one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, so you kind of have to tip your cap sometimes to the opponent on the other side of the field. But Jenkins and Linsley handled those matchups well. Lucas Patrick, not so much. And again, really struggled to begin with, but bounced back the rest of the game. Darius Shepard, he had the play towards the end zone. That's just a play that he's got to find a way to get in, whether it be a deeper route, whether it be making sure that he's aware of where the end zone is in reaching the ball across, and just really struggled to separate. Wasn't great in blocking, which isn't necessarily going to be his MO anyway. A little bit of a smaller guy, but just didn't bring too much to the table in this game. And so, yeah, he was my 2nd lowest graded player. And then Josiah Deguara, as I mentioned earlier, you can tell he's just kind of working his way back from injury a little bit. And unfortunately now he's lost for the season, but he was my 3rd lowest graded player. Again, nothing egregious here. No majorly low grades. The offense still graded plus 11 this week. So they're really, again, clicking on all cylinders. All right. I hope you appreciated this episode and enjoyed this episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. Make sure to check out Dusty, Steve, and Sarah as they get you covered for the full elongated episode of the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We should have some news coming up as well that is good news for the Pack-A-Day podcast, and that'll be looking to share either today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that as well. Thank you for listening. You guys are the absolute best. And as always, go Pack Go.